Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the True Health Forever podcast, where we try to live our best lives through the lens of holistic health. My name is Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd, and I'll be doing this solo today. King's got some stuff to take care of, so it'll be just me today. Hopefully, y'all are okay with that. But quick check-in from this last week. I'll still do the check-in. It was a quite a busy week, as I feel like we pretty much say that every week, but it was a little bit of a busy week. But a lot of good things happening too. We had a couple workshops for Play Black Wall Street with the Umoja conference that happened yesterday. That went really well. So shout out to the king. I was in the background sending some links, but he really did all the work there. So, and we also opened our second kitchen for the Potluck app, which was very exciting. So she had her soft launch. So we had friends and family and a few other members of the Potluck community. And she sold out of her ribs, green beans, and mac and cheese, cornbread, and lemon cake. Quite a menu. So that was very, excuse me, very exciting as well. But today, what we want to talk about is 6 areas of your health or 6 pillars of your health that you should check in on every quarter. I'm sorry, y'all, got something in my throat. So it is tomorrow, will be March 1st. Cannot believe I just said that, of 2021, which means that we are going to be entering into the end of the first quarter of the year already, which is crazy. So something I want to talk about is these are the 6 areas of your health that you should be kind of just checking in on I mean, if you're asking me, at least once a month, but at minimum every quarter, these are things that you should check in on just to do a kind of a check-in with yourself and see, how am I doing? And I am going to focus a little bit more on the well, actually, when you think about these 6 questions, they really cover a wide array of health areas. So if you really do an in-depth kind of check-in with yourself in these 6 areas, then you'll basically be able to touch base on your physical health, your social, mental health, and your spiritual health all at once. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. All right. So y'all know I don't be memorizing this stuff. So I got my 6 areas here. So again, we're talking about the 6 pillars of health that you should check in on at least once a quarter. So the first one we're going to talk about is sleep. Y'all was like, what happened? It's sleep. So sleep is, I feel like it's so underrated. It is usually the first thing we try to cut down on, the minute life gets crazy. Is, we stay up a little bit later or we wake up earlier. If you were a student, that was like the absolute first thing to go is sleep. Is I'm pulling an all-nighter for my exam tomorrow. But I do find that interesting because it's so important. And I think as a culture, we're generally kind of understanding a little bit more on why sleep is so important. But it is your body's way of rejuvenating itself. It's your body's way. I mean, it's really like, think about your cell phone. Like, if you were to just run your cell phone battery and use it all week, eventually it's going to die, right? Unless you plug it in. And our bodies work the same way. And I don't want to say like you're about to die, but right, if you go all week without getting adequate sleep, by the time you get to Friday, you are not your best self. Let me tell you, I've been there. So yeah, sleep, it's very important. So in each of these areas, I'll ask kind of a few questions you can ask yourself to really assess how you're doing in this area. And then I do have also just one tip you can take away is if you determine like, okay, I have now, figured out that sleep is not my strongest area. I need to do something to, improve that. I have a tip that you can adopt to hopefully improve your sleep. So couple questions to ask yourself when you're trying to assess how your sleep is. One, how rested do you feel? If you feel tired, if you walk around feeling constantly tired, that is your body's way of telling you you need more sleep. And maybe not even more sleep. Let me be careful about saying more sleep. You need better sleep. A lot of times we think that sleep is all about the number of hours you get. But the truth of the matter of fact is, if you do 8 hours of subpar sleep, that may not be as good as 6 hours of great quality deep REM sleep. Okay. So it's not always about the amount of hours, but it's really about setting up your space and setting up your daily routine that lends itself to a better night's sleep. So, how rested do you feel? If you feel tired all the time, if you wake up feeling tired, that is a perfect sign that you need to maybe make some changes to your sleep regimen so that you wake up. You should wake up feeling rested, right? After you rest, the morning should be the most rested you feel. So again, if you're waking up already feeling more tired, that could be a kind of a flag that maybe sleep is an area that you need to focus on for the next quarter. Another question you could ask is, how long does it take you to fall asleep? I know I have been guilty of this, where I just lay there at night when I have, maybe I'm anxious or I have a lot of things going on. It takes me a longer time to fall asleep. That's called sleep latency. But if you are blessed to be able to just kind of, my husband has always been blessed in this way. We have the opposite problems where he can really sleep anywhere, anytime. He has never really had an issue falling asleep. So he lays in bed and is usually asleep within 10 minutes. I can tell you that because I'm usually hearing him snore. But me on the other me on the other hand, sometimes I will be, and sometimes when you're asleep, you don't necessarily know how much time has passed, but I do sleep with my Fitbit on. So sometimes I'll take a look at the clock and be like, oh, okay, it has been a whole hour and I'm still laying here. So that's a good sign that I could work on my sleep latency. Um, Another question is, do you wake up before your alarm? Does your alarm wake you up? Are you pressing the snooze button? Pay attention to your routine right when you wake up. What state of mind are you in before you wake up? I know often I wake up before my alarm, which honestly isn't necessarily a bad thing because your body does kind of get into a rhythm. So if we have a window by our bed, so naturally when the sun comes out, we're going to start to be a little bit more awake. But if you're finding yourself snoozing 5 and 6 times every single morning, then that's a sign as well that you either, need some more sleep, some better sleep, or should just adjust the time that you are waking up in the first place. So if if you're answering those questions and you're like, yeah, it's not looking good, sleep is something I need to work on next quarter or next month, then something I recommend is that you either keep a sleep journal. So you've heard of like a food journal where you write down all the things you eat. A sleep journal would be, maybe keeping track of your sleep routine. Did you drink some chamomile tea before you went to bed? How did you feel when you woke up? Just keeping track of the different things that you're doing, so that you know what's working and what's not. And that can also just be, I think the most important thing about it is going to be documenting how you feel when you wake up. So again, if you wake up and you're like this particular day, you're feeling extra groggy, like, oh my goodness, what happened? I feel like I slept for an hour and I really slept for 8. Then kind of think about like, okay, then what happened the day before? How can I reverse engineer, my day and figure out what contributed to my terrible night of sleep? So that's what a sleep journal is good for. If you don't want to use a sleep journal, or if you wear a Fitbit or some type of Apple Watch or something like that that monitors your sleep at night, start paying attention to that. Wear it to sleep and pay attention to that. It does monitor your different sleep cycles. It monitors, when you're asleep versus awake, how long you, at least for the Fitbit. That's all I can speak to. It tells you what percentage of the night you spent in your different sleep stages, and it can be just really helpful for you to kind of figure out how you are sleeping and make those changes. So that is area number 1, sleep. Moving on to area number 2, nutrition. So obviously, I think we all know how important nutrition is, so I don't want to spend too much time there, but what you feed your body is the fuel that it uses. And Your body literally breaks down, right, the food that you eat and uses that to make up your body. It uses it to, replenish your cells. It uses that to build up your muscles. So your body is literally made up of what you are eating. So it is very important to pay attention to what you're eating and give yourself the best fuel possible. So some questions you can ask yourself when you're assessing your nutrition or your diet. I always like to start with this one, which is, were most of your, or how much of your decisions around food decisions, were conscious versus unconscious? So how many of them were purposeful? I'm going to choose to eat that salad because I know it has, healthy greens and veggies and things like that are going to be good for me, versus I saw a McDonald's commercial and next thing I knew, we were in the drive-thru, right? That's more of an unconscious decision where you just kind of took advantage of whatever was in front of you, or were influenced by something around you, another person around you, a billboard, a commercial, whatever it is. Those are a little bit more unconscious. So I always like to kind of sit and think about how much of my decisions were conscious. Was I pretty, there are some months, there's some times out of the year, some weeks, some days where you're like, no, today's going to be a good day, and you're a little bit more conscious about what you eat. And then there are other days when things are just a little bit hectic and you're eating whatever's in front of you. Both of them happen, both of them are okay, but it's just good to check in with, where are you on the spectrum? Are you mostly eating consciously, or are you mostly eating unconsciously? How have your hunger levels been? So if you are constantly hungry, that is your body telling you that it's not getting, think about the fact that if after a meal, if an hour later you're still hungry, or you get hungry again, that is your body's way of telling you it didn't get what it needed. So think of, and when I say get what it needed, sometimes we think about, well, I wanted a slice of pizza, so I ate a slice of pizza. What you want may not always be what your body needs. So if you are deficient in a specific vitamin or mineral, for instance, a lot of us are deficient in magnesium. But let's say I have a cheese pizza for lunch, which is going to have very little, if none, if any, magnesium content in that meal. So if I eat that, my body's still going to be like, hey, where's the magnesium? Where's all my vitamins and my minerals that I need to do what I need to do? And then if it doesn't have that, it's going to trigger those hunger hormones, and you're going to feel hungry again. So in general, there are foods that are a little bit more nutrient dense. They tend to make you feel full longer. So things that are high in protein, things that are high in fat, good dietary fat, those things will help you feel full longer, as well as, fresh fruits and vegetables. If you fill your diet with more of those things, you will tend to notice that you don't feel as hungry as much. Whereas even if you eat a lot of it, if it's all junk food, it doesn't trigger the same satiety responses. And your satiety response is just how full you feel. It doesn't trigger the same responses in the body. So you could eat a bag of potato chips and some pizza and a burger and fries, and then still feel hungry in a few hours, which shouldn't happen with the amount of food that you ate. So something to think about. Another question you can ask is, how often have you had bowel movements? So the average person should have a couple of bowel movements a day. So if not, but everyone is different. But one thing to just keep in mind is, if you notice a change, one, you should definitely be having, if you don't have a bowel movement every couple of days, that's definitely something to look into. Your body should be emptying its system on some type of regular basis. But if you start to notice a change, either you're either way, right? If you're going to the bathroom more frequently, that can be a good thing. It can also be a not so good thing, depending on what it is. If you're noticing like, oh yeah, I'm going more frequently, but it's maybe a different texture, or it's not smelling right. We're healthcare, so we're going to be very candid. Pay attention to your bowel movements. How often are they happening? What's the texture like? What's the smell like? These are all things that are important things to pay attention to, and can tell you about what you're eating and how your body is absorbing what you're eating. So a tip, if you are answering those questions and you're like, yeah, it's not looking good, I need to pay more attention to my nutrition. A tip is to use a food journal or track your food intake somehow. So they do have, you can do that literally in any type of journal. But there are also apps like MyFitnessPal. You can track it on the Fitbit app. And there are other apps that you can use just to track the amount of food that you are eating. And not so much for me, not so much for like tracking calories and things like that, but more just so that you can also identify, I ate this and it made me feel this way. And that making that connection is the most important point, if you ask me. Um, so if you make a point to document your journey in terms of, again, I ate this and it made me feel this way, then you will start to make those connections the next time, right? Again, I keep going back to this cheese pizza example. I ate cheese pizza for lunch and on Wednesday night and on Wednesday for lunch. And then on Wednesday night, I did not feel good. I did not feel very well. I didn't sleep well. That is something to document so that you know your body can start to make that connection the next time you see some pizza and you want it. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't eat it, but keep in mind that the consequences that happened last time and know that you're making that conscious decision this time. But it just helps you be aware, because that is the first step to making any sort of change, is being aware of how your food is making you feel. All right, let's move right along. The next one we got is relationships. We're people. We interact with people on a daily basis. I know COVID is a little bit of a different beast, but in general, we can't not survive without interacting with other people. It is built into our DNA, and that is just from the idea that, and I don't even want to say back in prehistoric times, because there are still hunting and gathering cultures out in the world, but we rely on each other. We cannot operate and survive as sole humans in this world. So relationships are important, even down to our DNA. So questions to ask yourself. Did you meet anyone new? Again, I know COVID's a little bit of a different beast, but you can still meet people in a virtual space. Did you meet anyone new in this past quarter? Did you have any meaningful conversations or connections? Maybe you reconnected with an old friend. Maybe you had a really candid, long overdue conversation with a family member. Whatever it is, really think about like, what is the status of my relationships? Who are the top 5 people in my life right now? And when's the last time I talked to them? Just really think about the people in your life. How often do you speak to them? And when you do speak to them, are they meaningful conversations, or are they just kind of, how's the weather and how are the Lakers doing? Really kind of think about how meaningful your relationships are. So a tip you can take if this is something that if you're like, relationships are not my strong suit, I tend to do everything by myself. If that's you, then plan to run an errand with a friend or family member. I think sometimes when we just say like, oh, I'm going to call them or I'm going to text them, life happens, it gets in the way. So if you actually make it a point to do something that you already have to do, but just do it with somebody, then you're more likely to actually make it happen and to actually, meet up with that person, make that connection. Because again, you're going to be doing something that you already had to do anyway. So if you have a neighbor that you want to go grocery shopping with, if you have a friend that you want to go on a hike with, whatever it is, whatever errand you need to run, or your daily walk, like let me call up a friend and, so we can do our daily walk. Make it something that you have to do already and just invite somebody to do it with you. Eating dinner. I'm going to eat dinner, let me go on Zoom. Let me schedule a family virtual dinner, with everybody. Cause again, you got to eat dinner anyways. So do it with somebody. All right. Moving on to the next one. Number 4. Yes, 4 is purpose or passion. So this is just, what is your purpose on this earth? What do you believe is the reason you were put on this earth, and why do you wake up every day? So that kind of brings me to the very first question that I think that is a good thing for you to ask yourself when assessing your purpose or your passion, which is, do you know why you wake up every day? Because you do. You wake up every single day, and do you wake up with this feeling of, I have to get this, I have to go to work to feed my family and all that good stuff, so then in that instance, what is it really that's driving you to wake up, to get dressed, to go to work? What is your driving force? Because we all have one. Otherwise, we'd be sitting around doing nothing. So if you're doing something, really assess get down to the root cause of what is it that I'm doing and why. So again, if it's, I got to wake up, I got to go to work to feed my family, then to me, that family piece is really your driving force. That is what's getting you to wake up every day. But it is important to touch base with that every day. I'm sorry, every so often, because sometimes we let life get in the way and we lose that purpose or passion. And then next thing you know, we're just kind of, we're walking the motions. We're just doing things because it's what we do. Another question you can ask is, what are you passionate about? If you ask yourself that question and the answer is, I don't know, then that can be a little bit of a red flag of, hey, maybe it is time for me to take a step back and get in touch with what do I actually like to do? What drives me to do what I do? And so, something that can help you, again, if your answer to these questions is I don't know, something to think about is, if today you won the lottery, you won $3 billion tax free, and you can take it anonymously. I know that's another big issue. What would you do tomorrow? Right? Money's no longer an issue. Your kids are set. Your grandkids are probably also set if you manage your money right. But so if money is not an issue, if your job, if the reason you go to your job is to make money, then that's no longer an issue. What would you do tomorrow when you woke up? What are you going to do? Now you may be saying nothing. Okay, you give yourself a week off. All right, sure. But eventually you're going to need to do something, right? Something with your life. What is it that you would do once money was no longer an issue? That is probably a good sign of something that you are passionate about. So lean into that. I remember listening to a podcast, and I believe it was some type of doctor or health coach that was working with an individual who had just kind of let life get in the way and was losing his passion. And he kind of thought about, well, when I was a kid, I used to love trains. And he rekindled his love for trains and started a whole train collection, and just was beaming with the passion and some sort of the purpose after that. So that can be something to think about too, is what did I used to like as a kid before I got all these adultly duties, before I had a family to take care of, before I had a job I needed to go to every single day. What things that I like to do, and see if those things are still applicable. If you like to dance or cook, is that what you would like? Is that what you would do if money was not an issue? Would you go and dance for the rest of your life? Would you just cook because that's what you love to do? Those are things to pay attention to and to identify, so you know that this is something I like to do. Moving right along, stress management. That is the fifth area that I think is extremely important to pay attention to. And that is because stress is ever so present, and it is impossible to eliminate all of our stresses. It really is, because life, because life. But what's important is how you manage the stress. You can be stressed and still manage it appropriately, so you don't walk around feeling like you're going to just have a breakdown at any moment. Okay, so questions to ask yourself when you're addressing your stress levels and your stress management. What are your top stressors? So it is important first identify what is stressing you out. You can't, really address it unless you first identify it. When I mentioned awareness is the first step. So let's make you aware first of what is stressing you out. Is it money? Is it family? Is it your job? Is it losing weight? Is it COVID-19? Whatever it is, identify what is stressing you out first, so that you, again, can be aware and can make, if you know that your family is stressing you out, and living in one household where everybody's got to work from home and the kids are at home, doing their schoolwork, then a good way to maybe de-stress from that is to make sure you take a daily walk by yourself. All right, family, y'all got to hold down the fort for 30 minutes. I'm going to go on a walk with my neighbor, or just by yourself. Again, it's okay to do things by yourself. I'm going to go on a walk, just to get yourself some me time. So that's why it's important to identify what is stressing you out so you can figure out what is the appropriate thing to manage that stressor. How have you managed that stress? If your answer to that is I haven't, then that's a good flag, a good red flag. That should be saying that, hey, you should have some way, some regular practice that you're doing to manage the stress that you do have. Because again, there's really never going to be a time that we have zero stress. So figure out what is a good way for you to manage your stress. Everybody's different. Everybody has different ways to manage the stress. So find what works for you. And has it been effective? So if you're saying I manage my stress by doing a yoga class every Thursday, but if you're noticing that it's not actually helping, then maybe try something different. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should not do any stress management technique. That just means whatever you're doing may not be working right now. So you can play with the frequency. Maybe you're just not doing it often enough, or maybe you're doing it too often, or maybe you just need to try a different type of yoga. But identify, again, how have you managed your stress, and has it been effective up to this point? So if you have identified stress as an area that you need to work on, here are a couple of techniques. One, meditation. And I know that it's a little bit of we all have kind of we can have, I should say, a picture of what meditation should look like. I know as a kid, when I heard meditation, I thought of someone sitting, cross-legged with their fingers and right? But there are so many different ways to meditate, and you really just need to find what works for you. So I love breathing techniques. I love to just sit and focus on my breath. I find it extremely, extremely relaxing. Devon likes to do more of a visionary meditation, where he envisions himself, as a person in the world, and then kind of almost, if you imagine like a drone, like kind of picturing or zooming out on the world, and he kind of just pictures himself as a tiny object in the world, and that is calming to him once he realizes that all of the other things that are going on in the world, and he's just a small piece of the puzzle, and that helps him relax. So again, every person is different. Find what works for you. There is sound meditation. So there are, if you've seen I don't know what it's called exactly, but there's little bowls that you can make sound with, and it's like a humming sound, and it is very relaxing. So, just again, research different types of meditation, try it out, see how you like it. And then breathing exercises. That's a good one. You don't necessarily need to schedule that or set aside time to do that. You can do that anytime, anywhere. If you're sitting in traffic and you're like, this traffic is stressing me out, do some breathing techniques, do some abdominal breathing. If you're at work and, you have 5 minutes in between your meetings, do some breathing techniques. It really does help just kind of center yourself and, manage that stress. All right. Last one. Are you ready to close out? The last one is movement or exercise, whatever you'd like to call it. I say movement just because exercise kind of has a stigma to it that you have to get on a treadmill and really break a sweat. It doesn't always have to be that way. So movement is important because our bodies, the phrase use it or lose it really applies to our bodies. So we have so many different muscles and functions in our bodies that we are not taking advantage of on a daily basis, especially in COVID-19, when many of us are, sitting, working from home, or, just sitting behind a desk. Even without COVID-19, we've just lived in a very sedentary lifestyle these days, where most of our lives revolve around sitting and, either being on our phone or sitting and being on a computer. Not a lot of our days really revolve around being active anymore. Whereas if you think about, if we had to go and hunt for our food, your survival is actually dependent on you getting out there, moving your body, climbing stuff, running, crouching, jumping, things like that. We're not required to do that anymore because we have grocery stores. All you got to do is walk through the doors. And these days, with things like Instacart, you really don't have to do anything. So movement is very important so that you don't lose functionality of your critical body, your joints and your muscles that are important for us throughout our lifetime. You want to be able to play with your great grandkids or your grandkids or your kids, when they're born. So, some questions you can ask yourself: is movement built into your routine? So I find that I'm way more likely to get some movement in when it is built into my routine. So what I mean by that is whatever type of, whether it's your morning routine, and I adopted the practice where I read my book while biking on my elliptical bike. So I know that I want to read every single day. So now by adding in the movement while I'm reading, I'm more likely to get it done every single day. So there are ways to build movement into your life and into your system, into your routine, so that you're more likely to do it. If you are a person that absolutely loves or doesn't mind just working out every day, and you have a set schedule, and before you either wake up and you do it, or you do it before dinner, then more power to you. Then you're probably not a person that struggles with movement. I'm more speaking to the people that maybe don't like going to the gym or don't necessarily like working out in that traditional sense. There are other ways to get your movement in. So is it built into your routine? If it's not built into your routine, you're probably not going to do it. So definitely work on how to build it into your routine, which I will get to in a second. Do you have aches and pains? How is your body actually feeling? Are you feeling good, or do you have, are your knees aching or your shoulders aching, whatever it is? That is your body telling you that something is wrong, right? So if it's hurting, that means there's inflammation there. It could just be that you just injured yourself doing something, tweaking yourself in a way that your body shouldn't have been bent. But another reason that it could be hurting is that it's not strong enough to hold whatever weight that you're carrying, or it's not strong enough to hold those groceries that you tried carrying up from the car. So whatever it is, it's probably a good, whatever that pain is, that ache or ache in your joints, is probably a good sign that that's something that you should pay attention to, right? Let yourself heal. But once you're healed, maybe incorporate some extra movement, some extra stretching, some extra, exercises that you're doing with that. If my shoulder's hurting, then maybe every day at work, I do a 2-minute, little stretch shoulder routine. Those little things can make a very, very, very big difference. So incorporate movement into your routine. How can you do that? I do have some suggestions. So parking in the back of the parking lot is a really good one, because one, you are going to have to go places no matter what. And the back of the parking lot is usually the emptiest, because everybody's going to try to get the closer parking spots. If you park in the back, you're automatically guaranteeing you're going to get some more steps in throughout the day. Taking the stairs. So if you work in a building, or if you often visit a building where there is an elevator, decide to take the stairs instead of the elevator. Again, an easy thing that you could adopt to your routine that automatically is going to get you moving more, burning more calories, just exercising more, breaking a sweat. A 20-minute walk before dinner. That's another one. If you are like, I don't really go anywhere, I'm working from home, it's COVID-19, maybe you just adopt that every day before dinner, you go out and take a 20-minute walk. If you say that, like, almost like you have to earn your dinner, think about like that. So again, if you build that into your system, then you are more likely to get it done, because there's going to be almost that little bit of guilt that you feel that day that you decide to skip out on your 20-minute walk. So just build it into your routine somehow. If you live near the post office, or you live near the grocery store, or you live near the nail salon you go to, walk instead of driving. Pick some place that you have to go to at some frequency and decide to walk instead of driving. That can be another good way to build in, getting more movement, getting in those steps. Notice everything that I'm saying has been very low impact movement. I'm not saying go climb a rock wall. Just get moving more. That's all it takes to make sure that you are, using your joints and getting that movement in that you need. So those are the 6 areas of your health, 6 pillars of your health that you should address at least once a quarter, if not once a month. So if you're like, yeah, those I definitely don't pay attention to all of those things on a daily basis, that's fine. Most of us don't. But take some time, set aside some time to really assess how you are doing in each of those 6 areas. And I promise you, you will feel a lot better. If you make some action plans that you actually adopt that next quarter, you will be a little bit healthier than you were the quarter before. And that's all it's about. This health journey is just about making small incremental changes to your lifestyle so that, by the time, really as time goes on, there's really no destination to health. As time goes on, you just get healthier and healthier and can live a higher quality of life. So thank you for joining me for another edition of the True Health Forever podcast, where we try to live our best lives through the lens of holistic health. My name is Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd, and stay true. Make sure you stay mentally wealthy. I forgot our whole outro, so I'm just going to freestyle this. Make sure you stay healthy. Make sure you stay mentally wealthy. And of course, make sure you stay true. All right. Bye-bye.